Well, we are certainly grooving right along as we get settled in for a Thursday afternoon and a picture-perfect day in the weather department for thoroughbred racing at Gulfstream Park. Acacia Courtney, Jason Blewett joining you live from our Gulfstream studios, and another 10 race on tap. Following, this was not a run-of-the-mill Wednesday afternoon in Hallandale Beach yesterday for one man in particular, named Luis Saez.
6 wins on yesterday's card. Of course, the record is 7, which is held by Jerry Bailey and Tyler Gaffalione. Matched that this summer, but 6 wins, and it does seem, Jason, maybe not 6, but it seems like a multi-win day is pretty much the norm nowadays for Luis Saez.
Keep in mind, he only arrived in Florida 13 days ago. He missed opening weekend because that was Cigar Mile weekend, but he has come down with a vengeance here to South Florida. Certainly on target to successfully defend his 102 winners last season during the championship meet, his first ever riding title at Gulfstream Park. And here he comes for win number 6 on the day, the number 8 non-such. And you really get a sense, Acacia, at the athletic prowess and the overall strength. You could see it right there. I mean, he looks so pretty, so strong on a horse, and he got non-such to get him home for win 6 out of a 10-race card.
It's pretty impressive, and that's it. I love that awesome picture, thanks to Lauren King, our photographer, one of our photographers here. And it's pretty incredible. As you can see, he was a student at Lafitte Pincay's jockey school in Panama, just absolutely established himself as such a strong presence here, and he finishes up a race, I think, one of the best.
And you look at him and what he's accomplished, and will take charge, probably the best, most notable horse that he's been on, but you go, man, he's only 25 years old. It really is scary to think about how much young talent there is when you consider Edgar Zayas, Tyler Gaffalione, Luis Saez, the Ortiz brothers. Really an exciting future for all of those guys, and good to see Luis riding well, and he's got 5 calls today, beginning with Brendan Walsh's Burton in race number 5. Luis can take it easy the first half of the card. A couple of his mounts scratched out of races 2 and 4, so we'll catch up with Luis beginning in race number 5, and we always want to catch up with the one and only Ron Nicoletti, who didn't walk away. I don't think, well, he may have had 6 winners yesterday.
He had a good day yesterday.
Oh, he was knocking them dead. That was one of the best individual handicapping performances I think I've seen out of the 3 of us since I arrived in Florida back during Kentucky Derby week. And Ronnie will try to parlay that big Wednesday into a big Thursday and then a very big Beat the Expert Friday.
And I hope he can continue it, because we always talk about this. If you have a good day before Beat the Expert, it's a little bit tougher, but we love it. It's a lot of fun. Ron's showing off his muscles there. You can go to our Facebook page. Ron's picks are out for Friday already. We have 10 races, as Jason said. If you can pick more winners than Ron can, it's going to be tough, but you could win one of those great polos.
He is the Tony Bennett doppelganger here at Gulfstream Park, the one and only Ron Nicoletti, and we'll catch up with his long shot a bit later on in the program, race number 9. That intro with Ronnie being the 9th or 10th member of the Wu-Tang Clan never gets old. Now, moving on and doing our usual daily housekeeping as to what's on tap, just keep in mind we begin the high 5 in race 1 with that 7-horse field with no carryover, and that is also the starting point of the first of 2 pick 5s for 50 cents on the card. We gained about 25,000, give or take, in the Rainbow 6 carryover pot, and we're inching closer to 200 large.
Yeah, we have a nice carryover to start things off in today's Rainbow 6, just shy of 200,000. As you said, I think it'll be pretty well bet. It's a pretty good sequence this afternoon. Of course, you want to pad that bankroll for a good weekend. Reminder, we are running a 5-day racing week this week. Of course, we cap things off with the late pick 5 in the 6th race this afternoon. And Jason, it might be the winter solstice, but it could not be more beautiful today at Gulfstream Park.
Right, the first day of winter, and this South Florida winter. You see the palm trees behind us. You saw them out in the infield. A nice little breeze, and yeah, right around 80 degrees. I think the high today with very little humidity. In fact, no humidity. It gets no better than Gulfstream Park during this championship meet. So we'll focus in, and speaking of Christmas being just 4 days away, and again, happy Hanukkah. I know Hanukkah's over for our friends that celebrate Hanukkah, but there's nothing wrong even with Hanukkah over and Christmas on the horizon. We still need to pad the stocking, so to speak. So let's do that. We begin with your pick 5, and What are we doing?
All right, we'll give you a look at the pick 5. If you're venturing to the mall anytime in the next couple days, I wish you the best, but hopefully we can get a couple little extra stocking stuffers here.
You'll have an easier time hitting the Rainbow Six than I think
you will.
than tracking your way through Aventura Mall.
Yes, I think so, absolutely. So might as well go with a better bet and play the Rainbow Six or the early pick 5. I wanted to spread in this first race. I really had just a lot of questions here to start things off, and I think very early on the board reflects that as well. Race number 2, going to be using just 2 horses with Nadia and Italian Smile. My single comes in the 3rd race. I wonder, do we have another good son of Dialed In for the Sano barn? Of course, their stable star Guinevere by Dialed In, and Santiaman, very impressive in his debut race. Going to be using 2 deep in the 4th, though I thought SCOTUS Care will be a short price, could be a potential single as well. He's had a couple chances, though, and I need to see him do better, so I included a first-time starter for some coverage, and going to be using 3 deep in the 5th race. That is a very strong maiden claiming race with some top-notch barns.
Yes, no doubt about it. That is a very deep race that you have Luis Saez off that 6-win Wednesday, making his Thursday debut here, riding for trainer Brendan Walsh. Ian Wilkes has got one for Mary Lou Whitney Stables, the cutely named Tweeter in Chief. She's come up with some good ones over the years. I think back to Love Gov for, and Client Number 9 for Mr. Elliot Spitzer. As we turn our attention now to this $35,000 3-and-up filly mare maiden claimer at 5 furlongs on the turf, and I get why you use 4 of this 7-horse cast. It is a very tricky race, but one in which I prefer, and it's narrowly, but I do think the number 2 Deer Island Diva might go favored in this race. Early on she is favored, and it's just because, well, it's twofold. The barn, Joe Catney's the 3rd, going good, and the drop in class. You can't ignore it in a race like this.
No, you really can't. And as you said, the barn has been having a fantastic start to the championship meet with a limited number of starters, and I think you can put a line through her last race. She hopped at the start and was kind of never really got into the race. That was her first one with Lasix. Gets a drop in class. She's got to take some of that turf form to Gulfstream today for the main for the first time. I did land on the number 4 Wishfully. I had some hopes for this filly in her debut race on the turf. She really didn't run a step there. They tried the dirt last time, so this is her first time for a tag on the grass. Also, she gets Tyler Gaffleone. I like the rider switch, and I thought mainly on the bottom side it was turf pedigree. So back on the grass, that's just where I landed.
All right, let's move on to the 2nd race. A little more form, I think, to go on in this 3-and-up filly mare. $30,000 to $25,000, 2 lifetime claimer. Again, the conditions for 3-and-up, but these are all 3-year-old fillies, and in fact, we've got a half a dozen of them due to that early scratch at the number 4 Enigmatica, yes, with Luis Saez. That would have been Luis's first mount on the card for Antonio, but we'll see Luis later. We'll get Antonio in the mix in race number 3 with Santiaman. And the more I looked around, I just don't see much speed in this race, and that is the main reason I took the number 7. She's spoiled for Eddie Broom, who I'm hoping just can wire the field. She's coming out of a respectable race, and I love the post with the blinkers on and Nick Juarez. You've got, though, I think the filly to beat for Scooter Dickey and Johnny V and the 2 Nadia. And a little stat we don't see veteran, and he is a legendary trainer and class guy, and Scooter Dickey claim all that often. In fact, over the last 5 years, he's only claimed 14 horses and run them back first off the claim, but he's won with 4 of them, and I think that's a very good sign for the 2 Nadia.
It is, and this filly is turning back in distance, and I think that the distance should be no problem. The Dam's 2 wins were sprinting on the dirt, and this is the daughter of Flatter. I think Scooter certainly does love those Flatter offspring, of course, with Flat Out, and I like that he reaches out for John Velasquez, and this one has a nice work tab.
All right, sounds good. So I'll take the speed. Acacia's got Scooter and Johnny V on top. 2 class acts teaming up with Nadia off the claim. Race number 3 today, we stay on the main track, in fact, as we get on to the 6-horse 2-year-old optional claimer. The optional tag, $75,000. Just 1 horse entered for that optional $75K. Jose Pinchin, who got a nice win in yesterday's last with Non-Such. He is back with the 1 and maybe the inside speed and Gone Fishing. I think, though, and although the figure and the winning time I don't think bowled anybody over, Santiamen, by Dialed In, did just about everything you'd want to see a well-prepped, well-schooled 2-year-old firster do in a winning debut a few weeks ago in Miami Gardens.
And normally, and we'll backtrack to this and go over across town at Gulfstream Park West. Normally, when it's a runaway win, I kind of maybe try to find trouble trips or things to show. But what I want to show is, we can see as we just freeze it once more, I wanted to highlight how Santiamen, not only is he wide, but all of these horses over here are putting up a fight. And this is a track at Gulfstream Park West that we normally did see as we let it roll down to the wire, it be speed favoring. Horses were trying to hold on, but Santiamen, with his ears pricked, nothing really as far as a tap or even hands moving from Tyler Gaffleone, just so easy down to the wire.
Basically a paid public workout,
Yeah.
and although he, again, did not blow anybody away with the final time, I just love the way
Visually,
he did it.
yeah.
You normally see horses, even as recent as late November, a lot of times if they win by, say, almost 7 lengths like this colt did, they're doing it wiring the field. They're basically playing out as like the first over speed before taking over, and he was able to gain and sustain that big run. And the good news for, I think, Santiamen and his connections is the fact that this race does not feature a Todd Pletcher 2-year-old, a Chad Brown 2-year-old. It really does appear a pretty cozy spot for Santiamen, who's going to be, I think, every bit of an odds-on favorite off that first race to get his second start before he tries Stakes Company. In fact, I like Antonio to run 1-2. I think Antonio's got the main danger in Empire Power.
He certainly could. Empire Power, I thought, was a really good second, 2 back behind Colton, Mississippi, who didn't show up as much as I would have liked in some of our 2-year-old stakes on the Dave Classico del Caribe. But I do think Empire Power ran well that day. He's a nicely built horse. Key scratch pace-wise of Salambo, and you're absolutely right. That could really help Gone Fishing to the Rail, who's been working very sharply. Maybe shows a little bit more speed.
All right, with Amisael Jaramillo from that inside post. As we turn the page, we're up to race number 4. A whole lot of dirt racing in the first half of day number 14 here at GP. These are 2-year-olds on the dirt, $50,000 maiden claimers. 5-horse cast due to the early scratch of the 2 Jalen Journey. And for me, it boiled down to quite simply 2 horses with experience and 2 horses who are dropping down. Skoda Scare, who you obviously said you toyed with, potentially singling him in the early pick 5, in addition to Santiamen and the 5 Chase Your Dreams. They both have speed, and I think there's a good chance, unless Wonder Rock or one of these firsters can run a little bit, they're going to run 1-2 in a very chalky exacta.
Right, it certainly could be that. And I think Skoda Scare is going to be a very short price in here. His only race for the tag so far, though it was on a sealed, sloppy track, I think was his best race to date. He finished a good second and showed a lot of speed that day. The reason I included a firster is that the 4 Resistance Jack does have some precocity on the bottom side. He's half to multiple stakes place Beach Hut, who won at 2. And this mare, this is the son of Dialed In, and the mare, all 6 of the foals that she has produced and have run have won. So I did just take a little bit of a pedigree stab to try to split the 2 experienced horses, but they're definitely jump off the page.
All right, and with that Resistance Jack, that's 2 in the race, 2 firsters for trainer Rodolfo Garcia, who did not win a race yesterday. I'm thinking of Ruben Gracida, but they both do a good job. Both Garcia and Gracida do a good job, and as you can see, not my first day, still very much learning my way here in South Florida. I am sure, though, and positive, we do have a Rainbow Six to talk about and catch, so we will take a little breather, and we'll be back with act number 2 here on Gulfstream today.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet, we are racing.
And a hearty welcome back on this live Thursday edition of Gulfstream Today with Acacia and Jason on this first day of the winter solstice. Hard to believe here. Again, picture worth 1,000 words, and check out that walking ring behind us with a nice festive touch. I like the poinsettias and the Christmas wreaths up and around Gulfstream.
It is. We like our Christmas spirit. We try to keep our office a little lively, too. I have my little mini kind of Charlie Brown type tree, but you got to do it up, and we're very festive here at Gulfstream and loving this warm weather.
And we obviously want to go for the cash with the holiday, the big holiday on us on Monday, Christmas Day. So why don't you take it away with the rainbow?
All right. Well, I tried to keep it at that 4320 mark, the magic number. We do have a really nice carryover to start things off. Just under $200,000 should be pretty well bet, and it's a great way, I think, to start it off. I mentioned this earlier. You have some really high-profile barns, Chad Brown, Brendan Walsh, of course, Louis Sias having his first mount of the day here in the 5th. So I'm going to use 3 horses. Race number 6 is a good one as well. I'm using 3, and there are the inside 3. I'm really intrigued by Super Catch stretching out, who won impressively last time out from Marcassi at Churchill Downs. 7th race, I'm going to be using just 2, going a little bit more to the outside. You have Painter's Boy and Cabin John, one dropping, one trying to make amends after having a bit of a troubled trip last time out. And in race number 8, using 2 as well, Grubert and Unleash Him seem to be the big 2. I do prefer Grubert on top. Going to go with 2 deep in the 9th as well. It was bummed. My long shot Adonis Creed ended up scratching. We'll see what we get from Grey Dude back on the turf. And then if we get there to the nightcap, going to be using 3 deep in that maiden 25 for 4320.
Same 3 horses that I have in race 10 in my late pick 5. If we get there, and you've got Drinks on Maggie, who I think of my good friend and our good friend Maggie Wolfendale every time she has popped up in the entries. But I also said, and you'll see, Drinks on me if we hit this late pick 5. But again, Rainbow 6 begins with this good-looking 5th race, 2-year-old 25K maiden claimers, and you could see the power of Chad Brown and just, I mean, the year that operation has had. It is just otherworldly, doesn't do it justice. I mean, it's floating out there in Mars or Pluto. He is just does an amazing job, and even playing around with the stats. We'll give you a little nugget here on this drop-down son of Lemon Drop Kid in his 2nd start. Chad just overall has done an excellent job with his 2nd time starting maiden claimers, going turf to dirt, almost in a way going unbeaten, as all 5 have finished in the top 3 and 3 of them have won.
And I like that you pulled this stat, and it is a smaller sample size, because sometimes there is just such a large operation like Chad's, and maybe you don't exactly get to really get the meat and potatoes of it, but I think you really do with that stat. And we'll just show the start of his first race contingent payment. I know it was on the turf, and he's going to be on the dirt in here, but I wanted to start off by showing just the break as we let it go, and we'll show the head on after this. But he is the number 6 that day. If we can just freeze it, and you can see immediately the horse just spots the field and is at the back as we let it go. And again, we will switch to the head-on view as well, because he's clearly just very green. Keep your eyes on the number 6, and thank you, Bob, for being in slow motion. As you can see, if we just freeze, he's basically just going this direction as he comes out of the gate and behind the rest of the field as we just go from there. So wanted to just kind of highlight what happened in his first race.
I think we'll get a sharper effort. Blinkers on. He's had a little time since then, and I was reminded in just watching that head-on clip that horses love to run to open space, and that was certainly evident early on the Widener turf at Belmont back a few days before Halloween. We've also got, and we basically use the same 3 horses to an extent, same super, obviously boxed up, but Burton commands a little respect, and I feel as though he might be better beyond the 6 furlongs that we saw him over this main track on December 6th.
I like him stretching out in distance, and I think he'll be more forwardly placed too, and he obviously has a great pilot aboard in Luis Saez, who's going to be very cognizant of what the pace is and put him in a good spot early.
All right, we'll see how Mary Lou's horse does with Ian Wilkes and Chris Landeros, who deserves to get off the duck here. He's ridden very well. Yeah, very good rider. Lost a tough one on Sunday. I hope he runs well with Tweeter in chief. Now, the 6th race today, halfway home, half-mile pole run. That is usually the case on these 10-race afternoons as we bring on the opening leg of the late pick 5 with the Florida bred other than allowance optional claimer. And I like the mix of horses, and I went 3 deep. I think Manolete is sitting on a big race for a few reasons that I'll get to in a few seconds. But I like that race to start things out. My anchor, Acacia, in this play, I had a single somewhere in order to get a little more coverage in the surrounding legs, is the Grand Motion train Solio in race number 9, who has obviously not lived up to that world-class, I mean, grade 1 quality pedigree. But for 50,000 dropping down, I thought he would be a likely winner, assuming he gets a good trip. The 8th, much like you, I feel pretty comfortable with Unleash Him and Grubert in that race. Yes.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be, there are a couple races I thought in the sequence could just be kind of 2-horse affairs, and you're absolutely right. Solio has to make some amends, but he's got some back class to work with.
Now it begins, and again, drinks on me if this play hits. Wrapping it up, hopefully we get there with the same 3 as Acacia, the old 3-8-9 in race number 10. But I like the mix and the different directions horses are coming out of in this upcoming 6, where you have some well-connected maiden winners, nice maiden special weight winners to their credit, maybe some untapped promise with the 2 Super Catch, who looked real good last time at Churchill, and the 3 Rupp, against more battle-hardened claimers like the 5 Manolete and the 1 Charlie the Greek. Now, in the case of Manolete, I feel as though, and his effort 2 back on the dirt at GPW was a fine effort, all things considered. I feel as though I'm going to make the argument he's better at Gulfstream Park than at Gulfstream Park West. I also think his sweet spot is around 1 turn, even though he's run okay here and there, going 2 turns in the past 8 miles west.
It's a great point to note that mile on the dirt at Gulfstream Park West is a 2-turn mile, whereas here at Gulfstream, the 7 furlongs or the mile will just be 1 turn out of the chute. So that's certainly fair. I thought, you know, coming back 6 days, they tried the grass last time. It didn't work out for him. He's certainly a solid runner, and it's no knocks against him. I just preferred others in this case.
Sure.
So I did land on Super Catch. He's out of a grade 1 winning mare who won long on the dirt. He's by Bernardini. I think you'll appreciate the stretch out in distance. In fact, before that big layoff, that's kind of what he was working towards. So after that big maiden win last time, and I also like that even with the layoff, they never dropped him. They kept him in special weight, kept on him, and obviously still had hopes for him.
Yeah, he gapped out that field.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at nothing more than the running line, you can tell it was a very visually impressive effort for Live Oak Stud. And Rupp will try to make it close with Super Catch. And again, some of those more grizzled type veterans like Charlie the Greek and Manolete in a good 6th race. 7th on the card, back to the turf. 2-year-olds, $35,000 maiden claimers at a mile and a 16th. We had a couple of scratches in here. That leaves us with a field of 7, and very much a case of the outside runners, I think, commanding the most respect and attention. And probably, to be fair, the starting point is the 9, your top pick, and Painter's Boy for Phil Serpy, whose horses have run. The few we've seen have run very well this winter down here.
They did. I believe he had a winner yesterday. And of course, Luis Saez, as we keep saying, had 6 winners yesterday. This horse does have 1 start on the turf already. It was his debut. He was drawn outside, and it was going 6.5 furlongs. So he's got a couple of races under his belt now. It is his first time in the Serpy barn, but I did think on the drop, the fact that Luis is aboard and they've reached out for him, and he also worked 7 furlongs over the main track here at Gulfstream, so it looks like they're really gearing him up for that distance.
Very good point on that, Breeze, and again, giving a leg up to Luis, you got to feel comfortable and confident that your horse, whoever, no matter the level, whoever the horse, it's going to run well. Now, for me, it's a case of just following Chad here until he tells me to stop picking him in the 8 high-risk strategy. This is clearly a horse who cost a little more than $35,000 and is a give-up in this race. But again, just seeing these first-time turfers for Chad, whether they have turf pedigree or not, they all seem to run, even going back to Blindpool, who broke her maiden over the weekend here and looked so good doing it and paid $10 in the process. So that's good enough for me. I'm just on the Chad Brown Army bandwagon, and for good reason.
And there's nothing wrong with that, and you certainly will likely get quite a few winners on that bandwagon. Now, a horse that we both used a little bit further down, but did think it was worth showing, is the 7 Cabin John, for another good trainer, an up-and-coming trainer in Jonathan Thomas. And we'll show the stretch in his last race, as he was bumped up from 3rd to 2nd through disqualification. Keep your eyes on the green cap here as we show the head-on of the stretch. What is going to happen is that he's going to have Revolving Sun bump him multiple times, and there we see it just right there. gets knocked off stride, and a couple of times as they're getting down to the wire, way on the outside, the 3 was Gunship, who did end up winning.
He's going, leave me alone.
Yeah, he's like,
just
leave
me alone. Come on. It's the last race. It's the 11th race. Everybody wants to get out of here. I want to go eat dinner. Leave me alone. We'll see how Cabin John does. And a glimpse. That's kind of a neat little matchup between Chad, who obviously is a heavy favorite to justifiably win 2 consecutive Eclipse Awards, but Jonathan Thomas, kind of the new kid on the block, who's picking up some serious momentum and steam and has that very good soon-to-be 3-year-old in Catholic Boy. All right, the 8th race today, very much as we wrap up the action on the main track, our final dirt race could very well turn out to be, quite simply, a 2-horse affair between the 3, Grubert, Versailles, and Angel Rodriguez. And I love the name. Although he's a bottom-level claimer, I love the name Unleash Him for a Colt or a gelding, and that's Navarro there on the outside.
Yeah, it really is great. And Unleash Him has just been really impressive in his last couple. He came at a bit of a price last time for a Navarro runner at Gulfstream Park West, and he got a 70 Beyer speed figure from that. Really jumped up from his last race at Penn as far as the figure goes. He went from a 43 to a 70. He's got some early speed. They're keeping Apprentice Abby Medina in the saddle. He did nothing wrong last time. But I think it's interesting, both you and I do prefer Grubert, and we'll go back to his last race where he was just beaten a neck. And I thought that this was an example, though it was on the turf, I wanted to show how game this horse was. He's going back to the dirt where he does have a win. And what happened is, if we can just freeze right there, the number 1 Run for the Woods just wired the field on the inside as we pick it up and go down to the wire. Grubert was against the grain, I thought, that day, and he was so game, never gave up a second in this race.
And the fact that Angel Rodriguez and Frank Calabrese, again, and not to sound like broken records, when you reach out to a guy like Luis Saez, although he's not in the age department one of the elder statesmen in this county, I think you're saying on a lower level claimer, this horse couldn't be any healthier, couldn't be doing any better, and we want you aboard. And obviously Luis and his agent Rich DePass, who's a great guy, done outstanding work thus far, a couple of weeks into their Florida winter. Race number 9 today, an all-turf late double begins with this $50,000 to $40,000 claimer, and this is a traditional looking championship meet Gulfstream Park turf claimer. Horses coming, horses going, shippers coming in, top connections, a lot going on.
A lot.
I know you have Ronnie's long shot in the mix, the number 3 CM Reap for Ben Colebrook. Yes, that is very good trainer, by the way, who's only run, I think, a couple of horses. In fact, 0 for 2 at this track over the last 5 years. But as stated, my late pick 5 single, I am just going to go with Solio here, who seems very well meant to me in for the $50,000.
He is. He's coming in from a couple of races in California out at Del Mar. One was good, one was bad, just to be very frank. And he did have some trouble last time out. He did get in a little bit of traffic trouble. He hasn't won since he broke his maiden in December of 2016, also at Del Mar. But he has, as you said, just an absolutely beautiful pedigree. He's out of a graded stakes winning mare by Scat Daddy for a top conditioner in Grand Motion. I landed on the number 6, Gray Dude, because he's getting back on the turf. And while you have, this is an interesting, I think, juxtaposition here, that you have the pedigree of someone like Solio, and then you have a horse like Gray Dude, who just seems to have far overachieved any sort of expectation for him. Yes, he's a closer. He was way further back in the Jack Flax than expected because of traffic trouble. But Jose Bautista aboard, I think he might be the sneaky at a little bit more of a price.
Yeah, Mondo de la Cerda obviously doing good work, and Gray Dude likes it here on the green at GP. As we wrap things up with race number 10, these are 2-year-old filly $25,000 maiden claimers. They will go short in the nightcap at 5/8 on the turf. And drinks on Maggie Wolfendale. Maggie Wolfendale Morley, the number 8, drinks on Maggie for me. It's the drop, it's the early speed as well. And if none of these other sort of turf unknowns are any good on the grass, maybe this Stay Thirsty filly for Michelle Nihe has just timed it right.
And I ended up using her second, but I actually like her even better than I did before, is what we saw from Picara yesterday. I thought this was a race that set up for closers, and she was the speed, and unfortunately just got overtaken that day. I did land on a first-time starter, Duquesita de Alba, taking a little bit of a tribute to the Duchess of Alba for Antonio Sano, Edgar Zayas up.
By the late Wildcat Air, and Edgar Zayas in the bike this afternoon from post number 3 from one of racing's good guys, and Antonio Sano, who by that time may have 2, 3, 4, 5 winners on the card, including Santiamen in our featured third, the West Point Thoroughbreds race of the day. Little breather, Pete Aiello standing by, and those Thursday scratches and changes are coming your way next.